If you've lived in or traveled through a major city within the past 7 years, then you are no stranger to the whole comfort food craze. Get out of here with your mac and cheese bites, and I want nothing to do with your hot chocolate cafe, because this girl wants a big hot bowl of cereal. Now, because Wheat and I are no longer friends, instead of sitting down with something like cream of wheat or my personal favorite, Malt O'Meal, I had to go ahead and do some research to find an alternative. Now, you might be like, Ray, just have some oatmeal. But oatmeal just doesn't sit well with my body either. After a quick Google search, I came across a recipe on WholeFoodSoulFoodKitchen.com. This recipe is for sorghum porridge. Now, I did make a few modifications. I'm not using whole grains of sorghum like you would see as photographed on their website. I wound up using sorghum flour. I'm also not using maple syrup. I went ahead and pre-soaked some dates at the start of this video, so that way I can use that to sweeten my porridge as opposed to using maple syrup. If you are someone who is very sensitive to sugar or diabetic, you don't have to actually use any kind of sweetener at all, and it's still gonna taste good. You're also gonna need a pinch of salt in this recipe. And what I'm doing is I'm making enough for like 4 days. So that's why you see this measuring cup keep getting whipped out. But if you're only making a single serving, then 1/3 a cup of sorghum flour is all that you need. The recipe calls for using 1 cup of milk and 1/4 cup of water. Now, I found for myself that was just way too much liquid, so half a cup of water with a cup of milk. Now, with that being said, if you run out of milk, you can totally do this recipe without any milk whatsoever. In fact, when I first made this recipe, I forgot that it called for milk and I just used water and it was totally fine. You want to go ahead and put all this, whip it up with a whisk before putting it into a blender. So I'm gonna add the dates to the blender and then I'll add my liquid of sorghum with milk and water and salt. Why whisk it up in a bowl before putting it into the blender? I found that when I put just the ingredients in the blender, I wind up with some sediment of the sorghum flour on the bottom. Doesn't matter if I put the flour in first or I put it in on top of the liquid, it just doesn't blend right. So I like to just quickly whisk it by hand and then put it in the blender. Why use the blender? Well, I've got the dates. So I want to make sure that those dates get whisked up. Now, if you're not using dates and you're just using maple syrup, then you're probably good to go with just whipping this up by hand. Once you have everything mixed, you want to go ahead and put it into a pot. Now, I'm actually going to portion out what I need for a single serving. I did go through a moment where I was crazy about canning jars, and so my refrigerator was filled with canning jars that had a week's worth of this mixture in the fridge so that I can just wake up, pour out a single serving into the pot, and then let that simmer. About this is that you don't want to leave it completely unattended on the stove because you don't want for the sorghum to stick to the bottom of your pot. And could you do it in the microwave? Probably, but I don't have a microwave, so I can't tell you what to do there. If you do it in the microwave, though, you want to think about how are you going to prevent it from bubbling over. Maybe you have to, use some kind of container that has a little air vent, or just cook it for like a minute and then 30 seconds. I don't really know. You figure out your microwave life. But I'm doing this stovetop style, just the way Granny would have recognized and appreciated. So you just stir it a little bit just to keep it from sticking at the bottom. You don't really need to watch it forever or anything like that. Once it has cooked for 20 minutes, then you can go ahead, pour it into a bowl and just let it sit. It will thicken up, so don't even worry about that. Now, this is just a really nice way to start the day because not only is it warm and delicious, but it's like fuel for your body. It just will get you moving, but not in that creepy kind of whoa, everything from last night is still stuck in here, I need to get moving kind of way, but in terms of, hey, I got a little energy. And of course, it's gluten-free, so that's cool. Now, I, of course, like to go all out with my bowl. For a while, I was into how many different things can I add on top of this. When I was experimenting with Dr. Greger's Daily Dozen, I was really focused on how can I get my nuts and seeds into my meals. I wound up decorating my bowls with like almond butter or peanut butter, and then flaxseed, and some nice chopped dates, and frozen blueberries that were thawed out, of course, because you don't want icicles in your hot porridge. I also wound up experimenting with putting some substitute yogurt on top. So as I am vegan, it was like coconut milk yogurt or almond milk yogurt. I wound up doing some spirulina for a while, some spirulina powder, and the sky's the limits in terms of what you can top your bowl with. But you can also go with a classic chunk of butter, whether you're vegan like me and going for vegan butter, or you are non-vegan and want to do some good old-fashioned cow butter. Now, with that being said, you don't have to have all these toppings to make your bowl delicious and nutritious, but it certainly makes it pretty. I loved hot cereal on winter mornings when I was a kid. And I think the reason I loved it so much was because one of the bowls my grandma gave me had a little bear at the bottom of the bowl. I want to make sure that it's clear that it wasn't like this bowl was a gift from my grandma or whatever. It's just the bowl she used to serve me in. And it's just what they did for kids back in the day. You want them to eat their food, so you have these bowls where it would be like, okay, there's a cartoon character or an animal, you should probably eat your food. But I took it as a mission to find the bear. And I just really loved making a hole in the middle of my cereal and finding that bear, and then being like, hello bear, I missed you so much, and then scooping all the rest of the cereal out of the bowl into my body so that I can look lovingly at that bear. Now, with that being said, I haven't been able to find a bowl with a bear as an adult, but I still think hot cereal is pretty delicious. I don't know, what do you think? Let me know in the comments below.